don't want him to gain another yard. You blitz all night!
Well, that's what the New York Giants defense used to be all about, going back to the 80s and the 90s. This Tennis New York Giants Trade Talk, powered by Big Blue LLC. Want to talk about a trade that nobody wants to talk about? Let's give them something to talk about. Let's talk about Dexter Lawrence. Dexter Lawrence, 6'4", 242 pounds, sexy Dexy, defensive tackle, nose tackle, whatever you want to call him. He's that singularly destructive force that is inside the center of that giant universe when it comes to defense. Yes and no. And I think, like I said, I don't think this topic is going to be popular, but it makes sense. Dexter Lawrence has been that good proverbial soldier. We've watched him grow into that position since 2019 when he came into the league with his 38 tackles and 2.5 sacks. We watched him blossom into that player. We remember the Dalvin Tomlinson seasons when he was paired with him about a few years back and he really blossomed. And then he really came into his own a little bit when we had
King of the almost sack.
He's been that nose tackle, that defensive tackle. The one that people compare to be one of the best in the league, if not the best in the league. But you got to look at this from a Giant perspective. The season that we had this last season was horrid. Season before that was horrid. Dexter Lawrence has now been in the league 6 years. We are going to be heading into year 7 with Sexy Dexy. And at times, the middle of the defense, people don't want to talk about it, especially even during that 9-7-1 season. We had some problems in the interior of the defense stopping the run. We had. And it's not Dexter Lawrence's fault, but the majority of the issues that we have on defense in reference to stopping the run is going to be off tackle. We've said it before. You go back to the last season of Joe Judge. You go back to the joint practice with the Cleveland Browns and even that preseason game with the Cleveland Browns where the Cleveland Browns showed the entire the league the way. We pointed it out that all you need to do off this Giants defense is run off tackle. And this has been going on now for 4 years. We've said it before, off tackle left, off tackle right, off tackle left, off tackle right, over the top, touchdown. And nothing has changed. Your defensive ends have changed, but they've not gotten any better in reference to what I like to refer to as assignment integrity, because they're not maintaining their assignments when it comes to the run. They're more interested in going after the passer. They're lighter. Their defensive ends a little bit on the lighter side. So while you can get some giddy up and get off the quarterback, the problem has always been you just need to run directly at them. I said at the moment we got Brian Burns. Him and Kayvon Thibodeau are carbon copies. You got the same player on each side. Both have some skills to get after the pass rusher, but are not well-versed at playing in the run. And I said at the moment we get them, just run at them. Don't run away from them. Don't run in the middle. Just run right at them. Make it plain and simple. Because you have no one behind them. No one is behind them in reference to mopping up. Bobby Okereke this season, like I said, it was what I like to refer to as the Blake Martinez sophomore slump. McFadden has been known to miss tackles. Our safeties were terrible. You have no real outside linebackers. I haven't seen a real outside linebacker on this team with God knows when. So teams know when the Giants get over-aggressive in reference to rushing the passer, just do a little bit of delayed handoff, do a little bit of motion, do a little bit that you need to do, and then just run right at Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns. Because there's nothing behind them, and they could easily get into the second level with these guys at the ends. You are not a defensive end away. You are not a defensive tackle away. You are a lot of players away from making something special happen. And you have to look at Dexter Lawrence at 27 years old. He'll be 28 this year. And you have to say, are we going to be a good team when he is approaching the end of his contract? His final year of the contract is 2027. He'll be 30 years old. Will he still be that premier defensive end? Listen, I like Dexter Lawrence, but if we over-exaggerate, I think the Giant fans, because we're trying to cling on to things, we over-evaluate the talent level of certain one of our players. Listen, Dexter Lawrence is a Pro Bowler. Dexter Lawrence is a guy. Dexter Lawrence is a guy that can do many things at his size that other players cannot do in this league. But the problem is this. Majority of his sacks came from the defensive end position. They didn't come from his defensive tackle position. They came from the defensive end position. Because of the fact that we were not generating enough of a rush to go out and giddy up and go after the quarterback. It's plain and simple. And I look at the way he plays. He's not Aaron, we've talked about it before. He's not Aaron Donald. And there's nothing wrong with that. He's not Chris Jones. He is a very, 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 very good defensive tackle, defensive nose tackle. In the right defense, he can be a disruptor. But is he one of those guys that when you look at him, you say he is going to be that Lawrence Taylor? He is going to be that true difference maker in the middle of this defense. And when we finally get good again, is he still going to be in his prime? I'm personally going to say probably no. Probably not. I mean, I see Quentin Williams plays just as well at times. He's stout against the run. You got Derek Brown over in Carolina. You know, what's his name? Christian Wilkinson over the Raiders. You know, you have guys that can, that command the same presence as Dexter Lawrence. And if you take a look what Dexter Lawrence did this year statistically, what happened to Dexter after October 20th? Another 5 games without a sack. You know, and it's one of these things. If you take a look at it, his sack, you look at his totals, Dexter Lawrence. Steeler games, 4 tackles. 2 of them were assists. Commanders game, 6 tackles. 5 of them were assists. We go to the Panther game, 4 tackles. 3 were assists. The Buccaneers game, 3 tackles, all 3 were assists. They weren't solo tackles. So if you look at it in a 5-game span, he had, let's see how many in 5 games. Let's see, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, there's 6. He had 6 solo tackles in 5 games and no sacks. And that's after the 2-sack performance against the Eagles. It's not a player that this team needs right now because you're not going to be good next year. His contract is movable. And like I said, I know people don't want to hear it, but Dexter Lawrence's contract is a movable contract. And it's one of those deals that you can still, if you got a 2 and a 5 and a swap of 5s for the likes of Brian Burns, could you get a more towards the end of the first round pick for Burns, and then maybe a couple mid-level picks? Sure, I think you get like anywhere between 20 to 30. We talk about the devalue of the running back position. Defensive tackle has always been a position that you can find players in the later rounds. It's always been that position. And you got to remember, there's a potential out in Dexter Lawrence's contract in 2026. So right now, even if you trade him for the 2025 season at 28 years old at the prime, he's only got a dead cap number of $23 million. Yes, you still have the Daniel Jones dead cap, and you still have that fiasco. But you need to build for the future. We've talked about it a million times. When Daniel Jones signed that contract, I told everyone this is going to set the team back a minimum of 5 years. We've already passed 2 years of that minimum 5 years. So you figure 2025, 2026, 2027, the Giants will probably be hopefully, if done correctly, will be somewhat relevant. May not even be a playoff contender yet, but then you'll have a 30-year-old Dexter Lawrence at the last year of his contract if they don't opt out. Why not do something the Giants seem to be so leery in doing and going out and getting value for their players while there still is value, or where there's something that we don't just give them away for free? And that's what we do a lot of times with these players. We give them away for free. You look at Julian Love, look at, hell, you can go way back and look at some players we gave away for free, but you always look at Love, McKinney, and Barkley. You have value on this team. Out of the 53-man roster, there may be 4 players on this team that have value. So why not, if they're going to be older players, as we start getting better down the road, hopefully in 3 years, that you get value for them and you get assets. Of course, there is no guarantee that any picks that you get are going to hit, especially with Joe Shane drafting. There's no guarantee. But at least there's also no guarantee that, like I said, that Dexter Lawrence will even be on this team or even good when when we're finally getting good again. Like I said, he'll probably be on the wrong side of 30, because figure this way, in 2027, he turns 30, he'll be turning 31 in November. Think about that. And I think, like I said, it's been weird because every general manager we have, we never think long ball. We haven't been thinking long ball. We always think the short term. We always try to get the quick fix. We always try to make the trade, go in free agency, do something, do this. We're not thinking long term. And the long-term assessment of this team is at least another 3-year rebuild. Take value stock of the players you have and see if there's anything that we have that makes sense to move on from, so we can build assets and put this team together so that when we are good again in 3 to 5 years, that we have the players that are in their prime. Oh, let's give them something to talk about. As always, don't forget to like, don't subscribe, don't forget to ring that bell if you want to know why. That'd be awesome.